Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis, a special interview edition. I'm Gill Gross. On today's show, we've got former top 5 player Jimmy Arias. For those who don't know, and it is important for this conversation, Jimmy played through the 80s and the early 90s, then stayed very close to the sport as a top coach, the top coach really, at the IMG Academy, and as a television analyst. I've always found one of the most fascinating things about tennis is that the sport is always changing as time goes on. And I think we've reached a point where it's starting to become clear how 2020's tennis is going to be viewed as an evolution for the sport. It's one thing to look at Sinner and Alcaraz. That's just two players. But then when you look at Draper, Cobolli, Fonseca, Lehecka, Rune, Feast, you start to see a clearer picture being formed in regards to what the prototype is for the modern player in the mid to late 2020s. And I wanted to have a loose, free-flowing conversation on this topic. I originally intended to go kind of decade by decade to decade, going backwards in time, but we ended up spending most of our time on current day because there is just so much to get into. So it's the evolution of tennis and the modern game with Jimmy Arias right now. Do I have this right? 2025 pro tennis. Everybody is hitting the ball hard, and there are not as many major weaknesses as you once saw on the professional tour. Is that a fair assessment?
Definitely, yes. They're hitting the ball hard. Almost everyone's hitting it hard. You can have a couple of players, I don't know, Cam Norrie or Adrian Manarino, or a couple of guys that aren't hitting it quite as fast or as hard, but there are not as many obvious weaknesses. Certainly when I played, everybody had some part of their game that wasn't as good as other parts. And I think in some ways tennis was more fun in those days because it was kind of I'm going to get to your weakness and I'm going to hide my weakness. And that was the battle, trying to figure out how to break down your opponent's weakness while not letting them find yours or not letting them get to yours. In today's game, it feels like everyone hits the ball so well that it comes down to, which is fun also, it comes down a little bit to a mental battle. Who's going to be able to perform their best when the pressure is there? Obviously, there's a couple of players now that don't seem to have to worry about that. Alcaraz and Sinner are just like a level better than everybody else. So they're going into the match, I think, knowing they're going to win or being pretty sure they're going to win, and that's a huge advantage because that's the mental edge. And the other players probably thinking, I'm going to lose. And then if they get close to winning, they go, oh my gosh, I could have this win. And it makes it even more difficult.
You made an interesting point right there, though. Less weaknesses, or I'll say fewer weaknesses equal fewer tactics. Like that's almost a one-to-one.
Yes, it's no question. That's why so many people now, I hate this part of where the game has evolved to. I enjoyed the chess part of it, trying to figure out the best way to break down your opponent and how to get to his weakness. And now the weaknesses might reveal themselves only under pressure. Um, so so now it becomes that's why so many players today are, they tell you how they're just focused on themselves. I'm going to play my game and I want to, all that sort of stuff. I hate that because I do enjoy the part of trying to make your opponent play badly. That's a skill.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that's not being utilized quite as much. I mean, there are some examples of players that you could have done that to that wasn't happening in the last 10 years. And like right away comes to mind for me, Daniil Medvedev. Daniil Medvedev, when he was beating everybody, when he was ranked two or one he got to one in the world. Um, he had a very specific, he'd serve well and hold serve fairly quickly because he's 6'7" and get enough free points on his serve. And then on your serve, he's in the fence and he's making every return. He's putting balls in. And the pressure of having to win game after game by hitting so many quality shots eventually would cause players to break down towards the end of sets and he'd end up beating you. If you serve and volleyed against him, which is what was driving me nuts, you're in the fence. So you could hit a slow serve wide and get inches from the net. I mean, if he was playing Stefan Edberg, Edberg would have had time to run on his side, slap him a high five, and come back because he would have gotten in so tight to the net that all you have to do is touch the volley. Just get your strings on it from the position he's hitting the return. You will win that point almost every time if you get your strings on the volley. And no player was doing it, and it was absolutely insane. I couldn't handle it because you're going to lose playing your game. The numbers tell you you're going to lose that match on a hard court. He was beating everybody. So you're going to lose playing your game. So why are you playing your game? Do something that he
Nobody
doesn't
did it.
like.
Right.
Kyrgios did it. Kyrgios was the first guy that kind of started doing it to him, and Djokovic did it to him a little bit also,
Right.
actually.
In Paris, there was a match, I think fall of 2021, where Novak just started serving volleying on the deuce side every time. And then, right, Nick started doing it. There was a match where even Tsitsipas did it often and got him. There were a
But it
couple
took
of,
way too many years for
it
that
took a
to happen.
long time. And
It took
I
way
think,
too many years.
and how about Novak being the one to
Yeah,
finally rip the Band-Aid off and show
yeah,
everybody that it can be done?
yeah. That's kind of cool. I mean, I like that. But anyway, so that's the part of the evolution of tennis that I'm not as crazy about because I understand it. Guys hit the ball really well, so there's not this obvious thing to go to, and how do I break it down? But I still do think players need to, if you're a junior growing up and you're trying to develop your game, I think you need to recognize there still are certain patterns that happen when you play a shot. So if I play a spinny heavy ball to someone's backhand, often they'll back up a little bit off that ball. If I hit it deep enough, spinny enough, and fast enough, that combination of things will back you up. And for my style, I would hit that ball and then I would slide a little bit to my left because I wanted a forehand. And I
Hmm.
thought to myself, if you can hit a backhand down the line off of that ball that I'm giving you, congratulations. I don't think you're going to be able to consistently do that. So you're going to try to find my backhand and you're not going to be able to find it. And I'm going to start winning the point or controlling the point the rest of the time with my forehand. Um, that was my weapon, forehand. So I set up shots to get forehands. I think that's what players today need to be focused on a little bit more. This is a shot I love. How do I create shots that give me this ball the most often? Um, that's now the crux as opposed to how do I make my opponent play badly? Now, I still have some love to that when I'm watching some of the kids playing. I'm at IMG Academy and we're in match week right now. So I'm watching kids trying to play matches. I don't know why and I tell them, but they don't seem to listen that much. You're playing someone and you're playing well, and you're losing 4-1, 5-1, and you're playing well. Okay, your game loses to that guy. That guy's beating you at your game comfortably. So your only chance really is to find something that he doesn't like. He likes your game. You're playing well and he's killing you. So now go ahead and hit moonballs. Go ahead and hit slice. Do whatever it takes to make him not play well. Um, but kids don't seem to want to do that. I mean, they'll even tell me that you're telling me to be a pusher. I go, no, I'm telling you to try to figure out a way to win this match. I'm not telling you that's how you should play every match, but right now you're getting killed and you're playing well. So
Yep. The logic is there.
it's there.
Uh,
Yeah, it doesn't seem to always compute.
I want to go back to the style that you played of hitting the heavy forehands and kind of going into the righty backhands and get into the minutia of that in a moment. But while we're talking about the kids and the top juniors, this is something that I find fascinating about your worldview from a tennis standpoint. Is you're also watching a lot of the best 15-year-olds in the world. How closely do they resemble what we just talked about in the open, which is the backhand is big, the forehand is big, like there's just a lot of power, there's a lot of speed, and there's also some roundedness there. Do you see that with the juniors as well?
Yes, the biggest difference for me with the juniors and the pros are sort of the accuracy, especially actually with serve. They can serve 130 miles an hour, but they don't hit it right in the corner. And 130 miles an hour in the juniors, even if it's somewhat in the strike zone, still wins the point quite often. And in the pros, really, to me, it's the biggest thing is serve and return. The pros do those two things better than the juniors, leaps and bounds better than the juniors. But if you just see them hitting, they look almost the same. It would be hard to see the difference between a top junior and a pro when they're just rallying down the middle to each other.
Why do you think the pace has been ratcheted up so high? Is it that this is a generation of players and it's not just the 15-year-olds now? I mean, I think if I'm thinking about it, I mean, Sinner and Alcaraz, they grew up with polyester strings and light whippy rackets, right? Is it just this generation has optimized this technology, whereas the group before, like if you take a Federer or an Nadal or a Djokovic, when they were young, and even if you look at the technology that like Novak plays with now, it's a little bit old school in the sense that it's very heavy. It's harder to swing fast. He has gut in the bed, which I feel like is also starting to go out of style based on like the fact that it's
Should go
not.
out of style. It's
Why you
not
don't
as
like
good.
gut?
It's not as
Yeah.
good. You're
So
not going
okay,
to control the ball as well. So yes,
right.
the answer is the technology to me has made it too easy to play at a reasonably good level. So players that are trying to become great are going to have their strokes feeling like they can put the ball in from kind of anywhere. And you can hit it with some pace. You can string the racket really loose and it still somehow has control and the ball drops in. I mean, I don't know. I just feel I hate that also. There's many things I obviously I'm from so long ago that I prefer those times. But even for me, when I started, it was a wood racket. And a wood racket, you had to be skillful with that racket to be a good player. You couldn't just be big and strong. And you could serve great with a wood racket, but you didn't. It seemed like the big strong guys didn't have the racket skills, something that so that you didn't have that just overpowering type of player. Um, and then even in my era, we went from wood to the mid-size and graphite Prince. Prince was kind of the first one with this oversized thing. And then it helped players that weren't as skillful with the racket become adequate at playing. And then when you add the polyester string, now everybody can be adequate if you've practiced enough. I almost feel like the ball just, I don't know. I didn't feel like I could hit the ball in at the end of my career. I was playing horribly. And now I play with a light racket, polyester string strung loose, and I'm like, no problem. Ball goes in every time. Um, so that part of it I don't like because I do think obviously probably because I was skillful with my racket, with the wood racket, I prefer having that little bit of an edge and not letting the big guy, just because he's big and muscly, be able to overpower me because maybe he wasn't as skillful, but he can now hit it in with this new technology.
We've also seen across sports where really, really large humans have managed to be more and more coordinated. Like there was a time in basketball where the big guys couldn't shoot and dribble. Now they shoot and dribble. And there was, I think, when Medvedev and Zverev were coming up, and I was having these similar thoughts about, okay, where's the game going?
And even movement, by the way, you're right. They are skillful,
Yes.
but even the movement, like in my era, if you were the cutoff was about 6'4". So if you got to 6'5", 6'6", you were slow as molasses on a tennis court. And now that number looks to me to be, I don't know, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". That's when you start not moving as well. 6'7" is Medvedev. So
Yeah, well, I think 6'6" officially, but regardless, I mean, Zverev and Medvedev are two 6'6" guys who have been in the top five and
who
not
run?
just yeah,
Yeah,
like
they're
they lean
defenders.
they lean
Yeah,
on their defense.
yeah.
That said, you know, they haven't dominated. I don't think the proliferation of that play style has necessarily resulted in like, okay, it's going to be 6'6" guys who serve huge and move great, and that's the future of tennis. I don't think that it's been that clear a picture because you look at Carlos Alcaraz at officially 6'1". I think most people think he's shorter. And it's just, okay, there's a level of movement and power and skill that Medvedev and Zverev can't unlock.
Yes, but it just makes it harder, doesn't it? So I feel like the game is going to continue getting more of the 6'5", 6'6" guys that
Agreed.
move and less of the 6'1", 6 foot, 6'1" guys. That's not to say they can't have a chance. Da, I'm not sure we're going to get 5'5" guys anymore, 5'6" guys hanging in there. But we'll see. We'll see. Tennis does have an element of how tough you are mentally and how well you move. If you have those two things, you have a chance still, like even against the big guys. Diego Schwartzman is the name I was trying to come up with. It. I don't know that there's going to be another Diego Schwartzman, but Sebastian Baez is hanging in there, and he's about that size.
True. Well, what about let's take Andy Murray, and this is not no longer a size discussion. This is a play style discussion. Murray hug the baseline, redirect, maneuver the ball around the court, not crushing his ground strokes, right? Like never. That's just never what he did or how he won. If he was coming up, and part of me hates even asking this question because all of the, you're a product of your era and you're going to play how you're going to adjust based on what it is. But if you really copy pasted Andy Murray into today's game, do you think he'd struggle?
Hard to answer that because he did what he did so well. I mean, his anticipation was a joke. I remember the
Yep.
first time I realized he's a little different. He was playing the Washington, D.C. tournament, and um, I forgot now who he was. He's an American Russian player that hit the ball as hard as he could. And he's playing Andy Murray in the quarters, and he had been playing unbelievable, the Russian name. Maybe played for Russia. I don't even remember. But um, he's hitting the crap out of the ball. And I'm thinking Murray's going to be in trouble because Murray's hitting massaging the ball around. And I think he could get overpowered in this match. I hadn't seen Murray that much yet. He was young. He's probably 19. And Murray made him look like an idiot. He beat him 2-2 in 50 minutes. Just took that pace, redirected it. There was no chance to hit winners. He was just there. He was just waiting on the ball all the time. So he had that next level of great speed, but also unbelievable court sense. He knew where the ball was going to be, it seemed like. And even return a serve. He was getting no free points on serve. Murray was just making every ball. So I still think if you're a guy like that no matter how big someone serves, you're making them play every ball. Big servers hate that. So I think if
Was,
you have that type of feel and movement and ability to handle pace, you probably still have a place in the game.
was it Dmitry Tursunov?
It was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like we haven't drifted so far away from that stuff potentially being effective and working, but I guess what has struck me
Look, the game,
about
I'm going to break the game down to you really simply. The
yeah,
game in the most basic aspect of the game, it is who can create space. So a space to hit into and take time away from the opponent. You've made this space, and now you take the time away for them to fill that space, to get back to that space. You can do it the way Murray did it. Murray didn't hit the ball hard, as you said, but he did take it early. And he did use, when you hit it hard, he took that pace and redirected it and created space and then, caused problems that way. So you can still do it by taking it early. It's just going to be harder and harder because the ball's going so fast that how do you run it down from in close? Um, that's going to be the issue. But people keep getting stronger, bigger, faster, so maybe they'll just still be able to use it. But you just
it,
got to take time, create space, and take time. Those are the two things you're trying to do. I brought him up already once, but Adrian Manarino, he takes your
still winning
time.
some matches.
He takes your time away. And he does it, the faster the court, the better for him because it needs to bounce kind of low and skiddy. It helps his ball. It helps his ball, take more of your time away. But he does it by taking it early, mostly.
Well, let's talk about conditions. I've already talked about and covered Federer's comments recently, where he kind of lamented the idea that it all kind of is looking the same, no matter what surface is the we're playing on, it's looking the same. And I don't know that anybody would disagree with that. Certainly, the data suggests that the speed of the courts are not the same across the board, and they aren't slowing down in the last 5 to 8 years, as many have suggested. The data is contrary to that. But what nobody would argue with is like the homogenization of styles. I think the question is that because the surfaces have started to play more similar in speed, or is it because the play style that is proliferating works no matter what kind of court you're playing on? If it's fast or if it's slow, you can still play like Jannik Sinner, and it simply doesn't matter what surface he's playing on because it works.
The answer is B. It's that style is we still haven't found a way to counter. No one's found a way really to counter the I can smash ground strokes into the corners hard and deep and do it over and over and over and over again. Like it just works. So until someone can break that down, that's going to be the style that everyone that playing at the top of the game plays. Um,
It doesn't
I
matter if it's molasses or lightning, right?
It doesn't right now. No, it doesn't. The only reason lightning makes a difference for some players is some players seem to need a bigger swing to create the pace, and those ones won't be as happy on a fast, skiddy court because the swing gets too big and they'll be late and they'll feel like they don't have enough time to hit their shot. But um, the one thing that I feel like, and maybe it's impossible because they just the ball is they're too good. They hit too hard with too much spin, but it just feels like if you did serve and volley a little bit with a little more off-speed serves and better width on the serve. So you can bang, flat bombs and stay back, but you can also maybe occasionally, once or twice a game, give them a cheesy serve. And I'm talking 95 miles an hour. You need time to get into the net. Part of the reason no one can serve and volley anymore is because if you have a 130-mile-an-hour serve in the bag, why do you want to throw in a 93-mile-an-hour first serve? It's hard for them to do it. Um, but I would like to see how players would react. Maybe they'd have no problem. Maybe they'd just go over there and keep hitting winners. But I know as a player, I hated not knowing if a player was going to serve and volley or stay back. It made the return more difficult. If someone did the same thing every time, if he was always serving volleying, you knew I got to get it low and short. If he stayed back every time, you're just trying to get it deep in the middle and get the point started. I didn't like the guys that would do both because I wasn't sure which return I wanted to hit right now. So I don't know. I feel like maybe that could happen again if someone, but maybe they return too well. It's just weird for me to see someone that far back that you can't, like, you should be able to serve and volley if you're skillful at that.
Yeah, I think there's been a little bit of a resurgence in net play compared to like 2015. I do think it's gone up a little bit as a counter to the deep positions where it's like these guys are defending so well from the back fence. There needs to be a way to finish. And I
Yeah.
think especially Alcaraz has maybe led a bit of a charge. All right, we're going to come forward more. There's going to be more net play, but also there's way more drop shots, right? It feels like that's been the route, the preferred route of if somebody's standing on the back fence, this is what I do.
Yeah, well, it does a couple of things for you. Number one, it scares them and you can't just hang in the back fence because the drop shot could be coming. And two, players that hang out in the back fence probably don't want to be volleying. So even if you get to the drop shot, they now have to hit a volley on the next ball. So, it's a good strategy against those type of players.
Here's a more granular one tactically before we get to one last topic about when you played. Um, you made a point about how lightning quick sometimes matters because some players have big swings and they feel rushed. A change that I've also seen is it's less about attack the backhand with heavy balls and it's just like this is the pattern that's gonna work is we're going into the slower, weaker backhand. And it's more fast into the forehand. Like kick, even on second serves, like even I was taught, Jimmy, as a player who was never pro, but like it was your second serve is a kick to the backhand, kick it to the backhand. We're not even gonna think. And now I do think that at the highest level, you're almost at a big disadvantage if that's your only second serve because these backhands have gotten too good. It's not safe.
Yeah, the two-hander can take that kick, or unless the kick is super nasty. Jordan Thompson sometimes comes up with a kick serve that I don't know if you've seen much of him, but he can
Yeah.
get that thing out there so wide that it's going to cause some problems. But in general, yes, if your kick isn't amazing, two-handers are going to lean on it, and you're going to be behind in the point. So players, their second serves have also gotten way more aggressive. Their second serves to the forehand, they don't seem to have a problem going for it and making it most of the time. Um, I agree with you. That's definitely a serve and return is such a huge, huge part of the game. I mean, that's who's winning now. Everybody hits the ball well. So it's the players that serve well and or return. You know, the best players do both really well. Um, it's one of the reasons Taylor Fritz to me is ranked where he's ranked. He's got a great serve, and I actually think he's got a great return too. He's got both of those two shots. Um, I didn't think he would be fast enough, athletic enough to be ranked where he is. He has improved that part of his game. The speed's gotten there, but um, so that's the other funny thing to me about player development in a sense is that so many players spend so much time hitting ground strokes. And if you have a better serve and a better return than everybody, you don't have to be quite as good as them at the back of the court, and you're going to be tough to beat. So anyway, just something to think about for you juniors. Take time to serve and return.
Yeah, because there's no doubt that if you survey courts across the world, that there's just a lot of baseline ground
Fed
stroke
ball, a
fed
lot of,
ball.
yeah, I can't stand that part. I don't like fed ball. So that's just me. It's okay if you're learning a stroke, you're trying to change something, blah, blah, blah. But there's a point in time when that's not doing you any good anymore.
All right, so we're talking about the evolution of the game. I got to end on the Jimmy Arias forehand follow through, and your contributions to all of this with
Actually, yeah,
like
I feel bad because you're right. There is some of the game has evolved into this partly because of me. I do have to
your
say, and
fault.
not really me. I got to give him a credit where it's due, which is my dad. So I'm going to give you the story.
Let's do
Um,
it.
I was 7 years old, and I took a lesson in Buffalo, New York, with a guy named Ian Fletcher, who is an Australian who married a girl from Buffalo, and he had made fourth round of the Australian Open. So my dad wanted me he thought I had some talent. I just hit with him when I was 5 and 6, and he wasn't a tennis player at all. He was a complete beginner. We started together as beginners, um, and I took the lesson and the guy said, shake hands with a racket, which was kind of a Easternish, maybe even continentally kind of grip. Stand sideways, take the racket back, hit and point your follow through at the target. That was the lesson. My dad's a mathematician. As I said, didn't know anything about tennis. And I come off the court. He's from Spain, so he had an accent. I come off the court and I said, what'd you think? And my dad goes, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. He goes, how can you swing full speed and stop? That means you're slowing down right when you're hitting. He goes, I will teach you a forehand. So he goes to his desk and he devises the forehand where he said, I want you to take the racket back with your left hand. So the reason for that is you're turning. Um, the right hand is just going along for the ride. Um, and then he wanted the racket head pointed up as I was taking it back because he wanted it in motion when I'm hitting because he knows that that's momentum. So he didn't want it the way I was doing it. It was straight back, stop, hit, and point the follow through. That's the way he had taught me. And there's no power, there's no racket head speed there. So my dad said, and then he wants my arm completely relaxed, my right arm, which was key. That was actually an amazing thing because by doing that, by not using any muscles in my right arm, my body just threw my arm basically. And the timing was always there because I didn't have any muscle in my right arm at all. When you're 7 years old and your dad says, keep your arm completely relaxed, I kept it completely relaxed. There was no muscle. So I was
Hmm.
always just throwing my arm. And he goes, just let your arm go. It's connected to your shoulder. Just let it go. Finish wherever it finishes. And someday you'll learn to control it, was basically what he said. And yeah, that's basically everyone. Nick Bollettieri became famous and he was in the Hall of Fame because I went to where he was teaching, the Colony Beach and Tennis Resort. There wasn't an academy yet when I went there. He saw my forehand. It was a pretty big tennis operation at the Colony. It had probably 20 coaches. And he sees my forehand. He brings all his coaches over and he goes, "This is the Bollettieri forehand." And he started teaching everybody that stroke. Um, and it was annoying how quickly everybody in the world kind of started doing it. Because it would have been more fun I mean, I beat two guys with an ATP ranking when I was 11 or 12 in a tournament in Schenectady that ended up becoming like the challenger at the time was just a money tournament. Um, I overpowered them because I was 5'1", 92 pounds or something, and I was hitting the ball harder than they were because I was hitting it properly with rotation. All my big muscles were just throwing my arm. Um,
What year was this that your father was telling you these things?
1973, something around that time.
It's incredible. Like this stuff has aged so well from
The only
the
thing he got wrong, my dad, because my dad he had two other theories. One was completely right. This is where he got very angry at Nick Bollettieri because I ended up coming to Bollettieri's and Bollettieri at the time didn't. But my dad, again, not knowing tennis, just from a physics or whatever standpoint, he goes, I've been watching the players play, the pros play. Seems to me they stay the same distance apart. If one guy moves up, the other guy moves back. I want you to be this guy that's moved up. I want you controlling the court. So the game did get eventually Agassi was the first one really that just stood up and crushed, hit both wings hard and took it early. So that's the game my dad envisioned for me. The one part where my dad was wrong was he didn't believe in two hands because you have less reach. Um,
right.
and the game, because of the way he taught the forehand, all of a sudden you kind of needed that second hand as the ball was spinning and hard and heavy up high. It wasn't easy. It's not easy for a one-hander. That's why there's almost no one-handers left anymore. And the serve return is so much harder. All those things. So he was wrong about the one-handed backhand. Had he taught me a two-hander, maybe mm, you know, maybe I wouldn't have to work any longer. Um, and he also the totally relaxed. He had me completely loose with the forehand and backhand, and that's why my wrist would drop in this direction on the backhand. It's a
Hmm.
bad position to be in. You have to just flick it and time the flick. It was okay when I first came on the tour because the game was still pretty slow in comparison. So when it was slow, the timing was fine. When it got faster and higher, this wrist position isn't going to get it done for you. Um, so yeah, I definitely had my dad definitely had part of what tennis turned into. So from that standpoint, I'm proud of him, and it's kind of cool.
It's fascinating stuff. It's really cool. And there's one part of it that where you would think, okay, the follow through doesn't matter because you've already hit the ball. But when it affects the 6 inches before you
Which
hit
is
the ball,
immediately what he said, by the way. That was the first thing in his head. If you stop the follow through, you can't stop it going full speed. You have to stop it somewhere back here.
absolutely,
Um,
you have to like start the process of decelerating. But
exactly,
if you look at old tennis, like that's what it was at every level. It stopped
exactly,
here.
exactly. That was how I was taught. So yeah.
And for finishing nowadays, do you care where it is? Shoulder, or
No, I don't
ear.
care. A little bit of where it is a little bit dependent on your grip. So if you have that full Western grip where your hand's like this, the follow through has to go, it's like a windshield wiper. It ends up having to go from here all the way over. The more your the more your grip sort of gets weaker towards Eastern, sort of the higher you'll follow through. So I think I don't really care. And it's also different kind of forehands. I always want every player to have more than one forehand. You have to have the spinny heavy one, but then you also have to be able to drive the one when it's above the level of the net and flatten it out and crack that one. So it's kind of two different shots.
Jimmy, this has been great. Had a lot of fun. Appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, Gil. Be good.